Hi, everybody. How are you? Good morning. Today, we're going to talk about practical tips for creating an adequate environment, eating environment. How to create an environment that promotes confidence and creativity. We want to create an environment that makes our kids feel safe, that promotes exploration and trying new things and variety. What helps create an environment? So our objectives are to avoid frustration, create predictability, and promote confidence. So we want to avoid frustration because while our kids are frustrated and anxiety is in the play, it's really hard for them to have a positive experience. We want to create predictability because structure and predictability give kids a sense of order, and they can have a better idea of what's going on, and they can start to measure their needs and their wants more easily as they can predict what is coming later. And promoting confidence and independence because we want our kids to become healthy eaters on their own. We want them to be confident, to be able to make decisions on their own, and for everything they're learning today to translate into the later years. So what factors in? The setting, the time, and the mood. So let's dig a little bit deeper in each one of these. So the setting, let's try to find an ideal setting. Obviously, we're gonna set a setting where most of meal times are there, but there's always flexibility. We go out, we go to restaurants, but even in these places, some things remain constant. And this is what we're looking for so that they can give this type of predictability and security. So let's make mealtime in a familiar place, a place where we can really focus on food. When they get this familiar place, they start to relate the setting to mealtime. They know the kitchen is for snacks, the dining room is for dinner or lunch, and they start making this whole experience. Let's have a place where we promote freedom and creativity. So maybe when they're really young, and if you have this really nice dining room and you're not comfortable with them exploring there, maybe you can move to the kitchen where you can feel a little bit more free of what they can do. And again, the factor of predictability. When they know where they're going and they know what they're supposed to do, they're comfortable. As we know, when kids feel safe and comfortable, they're able to explore, they're able to promote because their prime need for security is satisfied. So they are a little bit more open to trying new things. So we try to make this play constant in our homes, and then we try to go to places where we can replicate this little area, maybe just even the plating, or that's the same idea. If we go to a restaurant, we know it's meant for mealtime. Another part of the setting is really setting it up with what we need for our kids. Everybody is different and needs different things at different stages. Some kids really easily start using adult utensils. Other kids depend on kids' utensils a lot longer. But what is really important is to know what your kids need and to have that available. So when they're starting feeding, a high chair is really important because they have to be in this safe place where you can leave them, where they can have a little bit of independence when they're really seated upright. And as we have talked about in introduction to solids, this is a really important position. Later on, maybe you need a booster for your chair or anything that feels comfortable. As I say, these are not rules. You just need to find the way you and your kid are really comfortable around mealtime and the table. Even these little plates, the ones that stick on the table and they're easy for not moving, it's not that there are some needs, it's just you need to find whatever really helps you and your kids. And there's lots of things out there, lots of blogs about different utensils, different plates, sippy cups, spoons and knives and everything. It's just really important to be ready to know what your kid needs, what creates anxiety for them, and creating a solution. For example, maybe some kids feel really anxious that they can't reach the table. Then you look for the solution that's a booster seat. So that is the way we have to set up our kitchen table. And even when we're a little bit older and kids or even adults, sometimes we have preferences and we want to have certain things around because that makes us feel safe, that makes us feel comfortable. And this is all the feelings we want around mealtime. So a time and a structure. Again, every family and every person has different lifestyles, different needs. So you can really adequate this to what works for you. But the important thing is to have some predictability, to have a structure of mealtime. Time for breakfast, time for snack, time for lunch, time for snack, time for dinner. Some people change and start with a snack and breakfast is later. Some people have an extra snack after dinner. Everything goes. The thing is, just let's have it established and let's let our kids know what the plan is. You can even print a schedule and have it on your fridge or on your kitchen so that kids can easily know what's coming up. Predictability in schedules helps kids regulate and helps kids know and feel safe around everything. Maybe if you have a meal and you know when your next meal is, it is easier for you to regulate what you need to get to that meal. And obviously this has a learning curve, but as you have a really structured schedule, kids will really learn and get in the role. So as I said, it's important to show this and to share this with your kids and family and to try to stick to it. Obviously, flexibility is always key because we don't want to frustrate by not being exactly the same all the time. But having a structure, having order, having an idea is basic for kids, especially while growing up, because this really gives them a sense of security. That is the first thing that always has to be attended in a kid. So as I said, you're gonna find your own, you're gonna adequate, and you're gonna share it with your family. And even between this structure, you can designate certain places, certain meal times at certain settings. Maybe breakfast is in the kitchen, but lunch is and dinner are in the dining room. Snacks can be a little bit more flexible. Sometimes they're outside, sometimes they're on the go, but always finding this little time and space. Another really important thing is that dedicating the appropriate time for mealtime. So setting enough time for mealtime, allowing kids to interact with food, allowing family interaction and socialization, and avoiding pressure that will only translate into frustration. As we know, a really common setback in mealtime is when kids get frustrated. So we really have to think about what is causing the frustration, and that is why we're talking about these three topics of setting, time, and mood. So eating in a hurry is almost a secure way to have a bad mealtime because kids feel pressured, kids feel frustrated, and they can't really have this complete interaction that we're looking for. Especially in the early years, we are looking for kids to have a complete sensory experience, to interact, and also to connect to the social side of mealtime. Because it has been proven family meals promote healthy eating styles in the future, because kids relate mealtime with a positive family time. So an approximate time could be 30 minutes for mealtime and 10 minutes per snack. This is what I would recommend, and it can be varied, but it's at least some time to really have this full experience. If we have shorter periods of time, we usually feel in a hurry and do not allow this exploration we are really promoting and looking for. So creating the mood. The mood will be created by kids, parents, and a family lifestyle. So let's dig into each one of these so we can really know how to create the proper mood. So for kids, especially when we're talking about babies and toddlers, but even as they grow older, we need to show them that there's a mood for mealtime. When we are in charge, we have to check the kids are not too hungry and they're not too tired, and always avoid initiating a meal while we're in a tantrum. If we are having some trouble, if there's a tantrum, then let's have a little bit of time to wind down. It's really common for kids to be doing something where they're engaged, where they're playing, where they're happy, and we want to pull them away from mealtime, and they have a hard time letting things aside and paying attention, so that kids can really come to mealtime in a positive note, because there's lots of things that are going to go through in this meal, and we have to make sure we're starting on the best note. So also there's another side about preparing for mealtime, and all of this is going to help them wind down and get in the mood and the mindset of eating. So it's this preparation by saying, okay, you have to wash your hands, maybe let's take a deep breath before we sit down, pausing any other activity. And as I say, structure will help with this, because if they know meal times around, you can say, remember, meal times in 15 minutes. You can start wrapping around whatever you're doing and get ready for mealtime. And everything put together will set the perfect mood and will make kids able to be receptive to this meal experience. Creating the mood for parents. This has three really important sides. We have to consider the feeding style, the language and education, and the example we are giving our kids. So as I have talked in other cohorts, or you can look for it online, there are different parenting styles while we are feeding, and this is really important on how it translates in our kids' relationship with food. As I always say, we're trying to rethink nutrition so that our kids have a really positive relationship with food, where they can self-regulate and be independent towards food in their later years. So we are trying to avoid parenting styles that are uninvolved, controlling, or indulgent. Uninvolved, as we see in the picture, it's really common. We are overwhelmed by modern day society. We are overwhelmed by work and everything we have to do. And sometimes unconsciously we get uninvolved and we don't interact with our kids in mealtime. We don't engage. We don't even engage with our own food. And this is an example we're giving our kids, that we are not paying attention to this complete experience. When we are controlling in a feeding style, our kids get really anxious about mealtime, because they know they have no freedom and they can't choose and they can't listen to their own bodies. Again, a controlling feeding style does not promote independence and gives the message that our kids are not sufficient that our kids' cues, whatever they hear inside their bodies, are not good enough for them to regulate. And what we're trying to teach them is that their own cues are really the key for regulation. And an indulgent feeding style is a really free feeding style that can give positive messages around connection and positivity in food, but it's too much for our kids because there's no structure and they can't start doing this sense of order. So what are we really looking for? We are looking for to be engaged and focused on mealtime, teaching our kids mealtime is time to connect both with our food and with our surroundings. And we are looking for a democratic feeding style. This means We provide and they decide. So we provide the structure, we provide the times, we provide the food we are offering, and the kids decide what they eat and how much they eat by listening to their internal cues. As I always repeat, this takes a learning curve, but we're not looking to raise perfect eaters right now. We are looking to raise balanced and independent healthy eaters for the long run. So this has proven to be the best feeding style and promotes a good mood and environment in mealtime. Parents, language, and education. Right now, there's so much information about nutrition, and we're all anxious to share it and to share it with our kids, but sometimes we don't really know how to do this, and we fall into really bad habits and tricks. Sometimes we label food, other times we exaggerate and we say like, if you eat protein or if you eat vegetables, you're gonna be so strong, and then the kid's like, I'm as strong as yesterday, and they feel like this is not true. So it's really important to be careful around language and the type of education we start giving our kids in nutrition. It's obviously dependent on their stage and their comprehension at the time. As kids grow older, they're ready for more information, but when kids are young, let's start by using language that is neutral and descriptive. Let's start by encouraging this sensory experience around food, and by really being mindful, like thinking where did this food come from, and then this creates this positive links and environments and knowledge. Did you know there's a farm where the farmer really takes care of all of this food, and for a long period of time they're watering the plants until they're ready, and they take them out, and all of this knowledge is going to be really encouraging and positive for our kids to know. Talking about texture and experiencing texture, for example, with young kids, I always like to say, sometimes you can tell them, even sometimes at mealtime, you're not going to be ready to try a new food because you're not sure yet. But you can play with it a little bit. You can touch the texture, you can smell it, you can break it, you can try and have this sensory experience and get acquainted to food, because they're just starting in this world and they need freedom and experience to be able to create this confident relationship with food, talking about color, and then talking and gradually integrating them in the cooking process. Like, how do you cook it? Do you know some foods are really nice raw, but other foods we really have to prep them so that they can become tastier or even digestible. So let's start involving our kids in this process as they grow up. But always, always, always keep language neutral and describe food and the experience. Talk about properties without exaggerating. Maybe you can say, do you know carrots really help our sight? But you're not gonna say like, you're gonna have a superpower sight if you eat carrots, because they're gonna see that doesn't really translate. It's not like you bite a carrot and the next time you have supervision. So these things are really important for kids because they're still making these relationships and they're learning to trust us as parents and to evaluate what we're saying. Avoiding labels of good and bad. All food is good, all food is neutral, all food is energy. So maybe you can say this meal is really nutrient dense, or this meal, but never say good and bad, because we're stigmatizing certain foods when we're not looking for that. Always avoid diet and fat talk. This is really easy to say. I don't do it with my kids, but you do it with your friends, or you do it with your spouse, and kids listen. Kids are really always listening to us and trying to decipher what has value. So even though if you don't do it directly with your kids, if you're always talking about weight or your own diet or your restrictions or why you really have to exercise because you're fat, then all of these things are gonna translate, and they're no longer gonna see exercise as an activity that activates you, that makes you happy, that creates endorphins, you're gonna see it as exercise is for not being fat. Exercise is because my mom really wants to fit on her jeans, and these are relationships we really don't want to make because they're gonna be around in their subconscious forever, as we have ours in our subconscious. So let's try to be a little bit more conscious all the time and to change our language, to change our attitudes. The truth is we were born in this diet culture and we're ingrained with it. But as we make it conscious, we can try to stop it and try to reduce the frequency where this becomes part of our daily language. And encourage activity and healthy food, always unrelated to weight and image. As I said, let's go for a walk, I really want to feel free, or let's go for a walk, I want to really feel activated. I'm feeling a little bit gloomy and I feel like a runner or walk in the park is really gonna encourage me to change the mood. And or this food feels like I'm gonna feel so well after it, so energized, and my stomach is gonna be really feeling good, and that is why I want to have this meal. So always try to focus language on this side. It seems like little things, but the little things really make the big things. So it's important to notice and to become, especially to become conscious, because I feel like most of the language we parents use comes from our subconscious. We're always going around life too fast and we don't stop and give them value. We think that when we are instructing them, when we're telling them what's important, we think those are the lesson times. But the true lessons are in daily life as they listen to our habits and our constant messages that are given through casual day talk. And the third is parents. We lead by example. I know maybe we didn't have the best experience, the best knowledge when we started to have our relationship with food. So sometimes we want to look for something better for our kids and we want to make them like live in a different reality. The truth is, whatever we do will help, but nothing will help more than setting an example. So if you find you don't have the relationship you want with food, or you don't have the habits you would like to have, try to make this integral transformation within the whole family, and even being transparent about it and being clear and saying, I'm on the process of learning a little bit more. I'm on the process of changing the beliefs I had before. I'm on the process of becoming a mindful eater. This is really valuable, and this doesn't mean you have to be perfect all the time, but it means you have the same goal and you're really fighting for it as well, because kids really take example as the most important thing. There have been countless studies where they see that it doesn't matter what you feed your kids in the early years, because it's really, you control it. If you give an alternate example, this will not translate into healthy eating habits later. So let's join both things. It's great we want to make changes. It's great we get more informed for our kids, and we provide them with better diets than were provided for us at their age. But it's really important to integrate this with a family lifestyle, with a common mission, and with the example we give them. And again, avoid promoting guilt, shame, and anxiety by modeling diet culture. This, I think, is sometimes we really fall in, because even if we're not on a diet, even if we're not really skinny as diet culture promotes, because we live in this era and because we have all the unconscious beliefs about diet culture, we constantly feel guilty or shame, or say, I'm gonna be really bad today, I'm gonna eat a hamburger, or I'm gonna be really good today, I'm gonna eat a salad. Why is being good and bad dependent on what we eat? So let's really bring this to consciousness and change the way we relate with food and the way they see us relate with food, because this is going to be really important on how it translates to their own ideas, their own beliefs, and their own relationship with food. And at the end, there's another thing, the family mood we are setting. So we have to create certain rules. And I think right now, the primary rules for the setting and the time is no screens. No screens at mealtime. How can we be mindful? How can we have a really complete food experience if we are distracted in screens? It's so common for parents to rely on eating in front of the TV or in front of the tablet, because maybe you can even get your kid to eat better because he or she is not paying attention. But this is not the idea. We want to create conscious eaters. We want to create mindful eaters. We want to give them their learning curve. Hiding vegetables, pushing them in, does not work in the long run. And we are not looking for things right now. We are looking for things that last, that transcend, and that are part of their future. So again, by setting this rule, we also have to model it as parents. Really try to say, mealtime, we leave cell phones away, and it's 20-30 minutes we dedicate to being together as a family, to communicating, to having this really nice experience. And this has been proven to create really good relationship with food, and it even translates in having an adequate food intake that creates a healthy weight. So setting the ground rules, apart from screens, any distractions like toys or other things should be set aside. And creating family rituals and traditions. All of the positive connotations we give to mealtime translates into this really nice confidence that translates into good eating habits, a good relationship with food, and good regulation. It seems even surprising that this has such a big effect. But setting rituals and traditions, it can be small traditions, it can be small things, or it can be big things like special occasions. Maybe the way you set your table, and sometimes you can involve your kids with this, like, you already know we always set the table this way, help me put the mats and help me put the plates and the utensils. Another thing could be like menus and theme nights, maybe once a week or once a month. We do like a cultural theme and say, today we're gonna have Mexican food, today we're gonna have Indian food, and this promotes exploration, but it's like a complete experience where kids do not feel forced to try something new. They feel engaged, they feel encouraged, they feel like they're being a part of a plan, of a project, and this really translates into a lot of security. Incorporating gratitude, teaching our kids to be grateful when we're thinking, where does food come from? What did it take for it to get on my plate? Or how many kids are not able to have like these types of meals? And incorporate gratitude, because it has also been proven gratitude creates this environment that is necessary for food, and also the acceptance of food itself is different when we are open and when we are grateful. And making mealtime a time to connect. It's been around for ages, where mealtime is one of the main times of social connection, and this is really positive. We want to maintain it that way. We don't want to become part of this rush society that has mealtime in the car, that eats while working. We want to give mealtime the appropriate time and importance it really has. And this will create a really positive relationship with food. I feel like all of these things alone seem like little things, but I promise in parenting, the little things become the big things in the later years. So just let's make a little rounding up of everything. The environment set by The setting, the time, and the mood will be really important in the experience our kids have around mealtime. It will be important in mealtime itself because as we're gonna avoid frustration, they're gonna be more open and more willing to try new things, to explore, and to feel safe around food. And it will also translate into good habits in the later years. Thank you for coming today to this quick session. I hope these practical tips help you to create the perfect environment in your home and to promote healthy eaters, especially kids that have a really healthy relationship with food. Thank you so much.